India is in crisis. Across the country, protests have erupted. What is worse is that the people who have taken to the streets, many of them doctors, nurses, health workers. In Kolkata, where the protests began, doctors chanted "We want justice" and waved placards that read, "No safety, no service." Similar protests have been held in other Indian cities, such as Mumbai and Hyderabad. The strikes have paralyzed the health sector in the world's most populous country. Hospitals and clinics across the country have been forced to turn away patients except in emergency cases. But what will happen if I say that sooner or later this day will come? India must know that at any moment a serious crisis can arise when it fails to curb the depravity of men against women in this country. The story begins on August 9th. A 31-year-old female intern was found in a conference room at a government hospital in Kolkata, the capital of the eastern Indian state of Tebangan, the night before. After a grueling 36-hour shift, she had fallen asleep in the conference room because there was no designated resting place. By the time she was found, the female doctor was lifeless, half-dressed and had multiple serious injuries. On August 9th, the media outlet Al Jazeera quoted a lawyer and women's rights activist as saying that the victim's parents were initially told by hospital authorities that their daughter had taken her own life. However, a post-mortem examination later confirmed that the unfortunate woman had been asphyxiated and killed. It was even reported that police had discovered 150 milliliters of alcohol at the scene, raising suspicions of a gang attack. The intern's father said his daughter had worked very hard to become a doctor and the family had supported her wholeheartedly. But her dream was shattered overnight. They lived in a middle-class suburb. People in the area where the doctor grew up respected her and looked up to her as a role model. So when the incident happened, the shock spread throughout the neighborhood. And they were even more outraged because they thought the hospital where she worked should have been a safe place. 60% of doctors in India are women. And they thought so, but the reality proved otherwise. At least 25 people were arrested in connection with the incident. A police volunteer assigned to assist with the admission process for police and their relatives were arrested for allegedly being involved in the case. Meanwhile, women from all walks of life marched across Kolkata and across Bengal. Although the protests were largely peaceful, a small group of unidentified men stormed the hospital and ransacked the emergency ward. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. Several police vehicles were also damaged. The protests spread to other states and the capital, New Delhi. From August 15th, the situation began to spiral out of control. On August 16th alone, police arrested 24 people in connection with the vandalism of the hospital where the incident occurred. In addition, 1,500 protesters were arrested for disrupting public transport. Meanwhile, India's political parties have also turned on each other. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party accused the ruling TMC of being behind and orchestrating the incident. The TMC denied the accusations and continued to blame other political forces, blaming extremists. But underneath, India is seething over this particular incident. India has long normalized crimes against women. The case of the female doctor is particularly notable because the victim is considered a successful person, judging by the fact that her family lives in a suburb of Songlau. We can guess that she is not from a lowly social class, and that she has a respected job in society. But what about the countless women whose names are unknown and whose voices are not heard? In 2022, India recorded an average of nearly 90 rapes every day. Nearly 4 every hour. More than 1 every 15 minutes. Now multiply those numbers by 365 days in a year. And don't forget that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Many cases go unreported. The statistics on crime against women in general are even worse. A woman is killed every 2 minutes. But why? One explanation is India's extreme gender skew. This is a trait that India shares with its neighbor China. In 1961, the sex ratio for under 6s was 102.4 boys to 100 girls. By 2011, the skew had reached 108.9 boys to 100 girls. In Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi's home state, the sex ratio is 112 to 100. Economists and sociologists call this the Kwang Kon phenomenon, meaning a bare stick, a branch without leaves, without flowers. In other words, a man who has no wife, a monogamist, is also called a spinster. China has a surplus of about 30 million men, equal to the entire population of Malaysia. The consequences of the 36-year-old one-child policy and the ideology of male superiority over female have come to India. Why is there a gender imbalance? In 2007, the whole world was shocked when for the first time a woman in the upper-class society in India spoke out from her own painful story. The main character was the daughter of a government official who married a millionaire industrialist. The life of a wealthy daughter-in-law was considered to be a life of luxury. However, in reality, her husband forced her to abort her 2 daughters after illegally determining their gender. Not only that, she also accused her husband of forcing her to sleep with her 2 brothers-in-law to give birth to a son to continue the family's machinery manufacturing business in Gujarat state. The main character is still the practice of eliminating newborn girls, which is still common in rural areas because girls are considered a financial burden when they get married and have to bring a dowry to their husband's family. However, since the advent of ultrasound technology, this situation has become more common, not only in the countryside but also among the urban middle class. Well-off families in the city are willing to give envelopes to private doctors to bypass the 1994 law prohibiting alternative sex determination of children. It is just that the richer the more gender bias. The situation is so bad that when she gave her inauguration speech in 2007, 2 days after police discovered 30 lifeless girls in an abandoned well in Orissa state, Pratibha Bathu, the first female president of India, called for an end to this problem. However, we see that the surplus of men in China does not seem to lead to a death crisis. So why is there such a shocking difference in India? The simple answer is the caste system in India. There is a saying that raising a daughter is like giving a tree to a neighbor. From the outside, Indian society is a cross-cropping of caste, class, religion, language, and mouth. However, if we position the caste system as the backbone of the entire Indian social structure, everything becomes natural and clear. This system was formed thousands of years ago, and until now, it is also the core cause of social unrest. According to the Hindu view, castes are born from different parts of primitive people, in which people of high caste are born from the upper body and the lowest caste are born from the soles of the feet. The 4 castes from top to bottom are Brahmins or prisoners, Kshatriyas or nobles, warriors, craftsmen, merchants, farmers, Shudras or slaves, those who do hard work. However, there is a 5th caste which is not officially recognized in the scriptures: the Dalit caste. People of this caste are considered outsiders and are forced to do menial jobs, such as dumping excrement and picking up trash. Dalit women are the weakest and therefore easy targets for the corrupt upper castes who have both the law and religion to back them up. To make matters worse, India is grappling with a lost generation. Those born after economic liberalization are poorly educated, unemployed and predominantly male. On the surface, India is a rising economic star, a new global power. But within this society there are many injustices. A group of young, unemployed, poor men, when they feel they cannot have a part in the miracle in India, try to assert their masculinity through actions that cannot be tested. And so, the world's most populous country has seen a resurgence of a Hindutva ideology. A nationalist, ultranationalist ideology. This ideology emphasizes India's most beloved epics and historical stories. Among them is the story of Vishnu tricking Tushi by disguising himself as her husband. However, this terrible act is justified and glorified because Indians believe that Tushi's husband is invincible unless her chastity is destroyed first. Therefore, in order to defeat him, Vishnu had to trick Tushi as a necessary and courageous act. In other words, Vishnu is considered a hero for this act. Yet, no god in India has ever been demoted, let alone prosecuted, for his behavior towards women. It has become the norm. Every man does it. That reflected in the incident that happened in 2012, which caused outrage around the world. The victim was nicknamed Nirbhaya, which means fearless. At around 8:30 p.m. on December 16, 2012, Nirbhaya and her boyfriend took a bus home after watching the movie Line of Peace at a cinema in New Delhi. A group of men took the couple's clothes, then dragged the girl to the back of the bus and raped her. The boyfriend was also stripped of his clothes, forcing him to watch the whole thing. The men then threw the two women, who were barely covered in clothes, from the front door of the moving bus and tried to run them over. They used their belongings to wipe the bus, then disposed of the body and divided the loot, which included 2 mobile phones, a watch and a pair of shoes. Nirbhaya died 2 weeks later in a hospital in Singapore. Before she passed away, she reported it to the authorities. But do you know what the perpetrators said about their actions? One of the 6 accused said that women are more responsible than men, because a decent girl would not go out at 9 p.m. A woman's place is in the house, in the kitchen, not wandering around, in dance halls and bars at night doing wrong things, wearing outrageous clothes. According to him, only about 20% of women in India are prostitutes. He said that if women are not good, men have the right to teach them a lesson. And when that happens, it is the woman's responsibility to keep quiet and take the blame. Blaming the victim is an extremely common way of thinking.